Welcome to Life Stories. Imagine being pushed to your breaking point by the very people who are supposed to love and support you. What happens when you've spent your entire life trying to please others only to be ignored, dismissed, and taken for granted? You start to wonder, is it worth it? This is the story of a woman who reached that point. A woman who, after years of putting everyone else first, finally asked herself, what about me? But what happens when you start choosing yourself for once? When you stop being the one who gives everything and start taking what's rightfully yours, your peace, your life, your freedom? This story is about breaking free from the chains of obligation and learning that sometimes the hardest thing you can do is walk away. Let's dive in. Victoria sat in the kitchen, her fingers lightly tracing the edge of the counter, the pale sunlight filtering in through the half-closed blinds. The house was silent. Too silent. It had been 2 weeks since her surgery, and each day felt like an endless battle against her own body. The pain from the procedure was a constant presence, a dull, gnawing reminder that her own well-being had been disregarded by the very people who should have cared most. She winced as she reached for the glass of water, the sharp pain still flaring in her abdomen. The doctors had warned her, no heavy lifting, no long hours standing. But here she was, standing on the edge of yet another holiday, a holiday that should have been hers to rest, to heal. Instead, she was expected to cook, to host, to live up to a tradition that had always weighed her down. The weight of the world rested on her shoulders, and it was never enough. The doorbell rang, breaking her train of thought. She stiffened, the familiar ache in her side flaring up as she walked to the door. She opened it, only to be greeted by her husband, James, scrolling through his phone. His eyes flicked up briefly, just long enough to say, "Mom called? They're all coming for Christmas dinner." Victoria felt a pang in her chest, her heart sinking. The last thing she wanted, no needed, was a house full of people. Not now. Not when she could barely stand for more than 10 minutes. The exhaustion, the ache, the endless demands, she felt like a shell of herself. She swallowed hard, forcing the words out. "What do you mean they're coming here? I can barely stand up for more than a few minutes. How am I supposed to cook for everyone?" James looked at her for a moment, his gaze indifferent. "Mom said she'll handle the decorations. You just need to do the cooking, like always. It's tradition." Her breath caught in her throat. Tradition. The word that had always felt like a shackle, tightening with every passing year. "I just had surgery," she said, her voice trembling. "The doctor said no lifting, no long periods of standing. I can't do this." James waved her off as if the very idea of her not being able to cook was an inconvenience. "Come on, Vic. Don't be dramatic. It's just cooking. Mom does it all the time, and she has arthritis." The words stung. The cruelty of his dismissal was sharp, like a slap across her face. The years of giving, of sacrificing, of putting everyone else's needs ahead of her own, was this all she was worth to him? A function, a servant, a cook. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed in her hand. A message from her sister-in-law, Megan. "Mom says you're doing Christmas. Don't mess it up this year, okay?" Victoria's hands shook as she gripped the phone, her vision blurring for a moment. She closed her eyes, taking a deep breath, and then she stood up straighter. For the first time in years, something inside her snapped. The dam of frustration, of quiet suffering, broke. She wasn't going to do this anymore. She wasn't going to spend another holiday catering to their demands, pretending everything was fine while her body screamed in agony. She dialed the one person who might understand, her best friend Reese. The phone rang, and after a few seconds, Reese's voice came through, full of warmth and concern. "What's going on, Vic?" "They want Christmas dinner," Victoria said, her voice low but steady. "2 weeks after my surgery, the full spread, like nothing's changed." Reese's outrage was exactly what she needed to hear. "No. Hell no. You tell them to shove their turkey where the sun don't shine." Victoria smiled, a small, wicked smile. "I think I'm going to give them exactly what they deserve, but I need your help." And with that, the plan began to form. It wasn't just about the dinner anymore. It was about reclaiming her life, her dignity, her peace, and she wasn't going to let anyone take that from her. Not again. Over the next few days, she put everything into motion. Reese helped her find every takeout place that delivered on Christmas Day. Chinese, Thai, Indian, Mediterranean. All confirmed, all prepaid. And then, as a final touch, Victoria ordered a stack of takeout menus. The dining room would be wallpapered with them. The family would come, expecting the usual spread of roasted meats, potatoes, and pies. Instead, they would walk into a room full of takeout containers, a symbol of everything she had been forced to endure. Christmas morning arrived, and the house was eerily quiet. Victoria sat on the couch, her hand resting gently on her surgery site, watching Home Alone on her tablet. It felt almost poetic, almost fitting. Her phone buzzed again. A text from Megan. "Don't forget the turkey, Vic. Mom's counting on you." She chuckled bitterly, turning the phone to silent and slipping it into her pocket. The turkey wouldn't be served. The only thing on the table would be the consequences of their years of neglect. By the time her family arrived, the house was ready. The takeout menus were carefully taped to the walls, the note placed in the center of the table like a gift. It read, "Enjoy choosing your meal. All are prepaid. I'm resting per surgical necessity. You may direct complaints to the surgeon's office if unsatisfied. Happy holidays." When they walked through the door, they were greeted by an empty kitchen, a dining room covered in menus, and a note that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. Victoria stood back, watching through the camera feed on her phone as they entered. The confusion, the shock, the disbelief. It was everything she had imagined. But she wasn't there to witness their rage. She was already on her way to freedom. Her retreat awaited, the peace she had been denied for so long. As her family's fury reached a boiling point, she couldn't help but feel a sense of liberation. This was it. The moment they finally understood what it felt like to be ignored, to be neglected, to be taken for granted. But she was done being the victim. She was done sacrificing herself for them. Now it was her turn. How far would you go to reclaim your peace when everyone around you expects you to give everything up? What would it take for you to finally say no and put yourself first? And as she drove away from the house, Victoria couldn't help but smile. The holidays would never be the same. For them. But for her, they would never be better. Her real Christmas had just begun. The retreat was everything Victoria had imagined and more. The air was fresh, crisp, and quiet. Each morning, she woke up to the sound of birds singing and the view of a serene lake outside her window, the water glimmering under the rising sun. It was the peace she had longed for, the kind of silence that allowed her to breathe without the weight of the world pressing down on her chest. But as the days passed, something inside her began to shift. The anger, the bitterness, it was still there, simmering beneath the surface, but something else started to creep in as well. Guilt. It was subtle at first, a gnawing feeling that she could push away when she was busy enjoying the beauty around her, but it kept coming back. At night, when she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, she found herself thinking about them, her family, not with anger, but with a deep, aching sadness. Was this really the answer? Was revenge truly what she had needed all along? The phone calls from Reese had become a comforting routine. She'd send texts, check in on her, and even send her photos of her progress, as if the world outside her new life could still see her struggle. But today, Reese's voice had a different edge to it. "Vic, I get it. I do. But you're not going to feel better by running away forever. They're your family no matter what. And you've done a hell of a job taking care of yourself. But this thing, it's bigger than just the food, right?" Victoria sat on the porch of her cabin, the cold wind brushing against her cheeks. She stared out at the trees swaying gently, trying to ignore the tension building in her chest. "I didn't just run away, Ree," she said softly, her voice trembling. "I was suffocated. I was always there for them, always giving, always sacrificing. It was never enough. And when I needed them, when I really needed them, they weren't there. I couldn't take it anymore." "I know," Reese replied gently, "but that's not the same as giving up. You're more than what they turned you into. You're not a servant." The words hit her harder than she expected. Reese was right, of course, but still the question lingered in her mind. Was it worth it? Was running away really the answer to all of this? For years, she had been the one to hold everything together, hosting dinners, organizing family gatherings, putting her own life on hold. And for what? To be treated like a doormat? To be dismissed and ignored? The truth was, she had spent so long trying to live up to their impossible expectations that she had forgotten who she was. Not the cook, not the organizer, not the one who made everything work. But who was she really? The sound of footsteps on the porch jolted her from her thoughts. She turned to find the receptionist from the lodge standing before her, holding a letter. "Victoria, I'm so sorry to bother you, but this came for you. It's from your family." Her heart skipped a beat. They found me. Her mind raced, her hands suddenly clammy. How could they have tracked her down? How could they even have the nerve to reach out after everything? She took the letter with shaky hands, the words almost blurring as she opened it. It was from her husband, James. "Victoria, we've been trying to reach you. You left without saying goodbye. Your family is broken without you. You know that, right? Mom, Ava, Megan, they're all struggling. They miss you. Christmas was a disaster. The kids were devastated. We all are. I know you're angry. I know you're hurt, but we need you. Please, come back. Please come home." The words echoed in her mind, bouncing off the walls of her heart. Please come home. The words she had always longed to hear. And yet, they felt so empty now. Victoria crumpled the letter in her hand, a sob escaping her lips before she could stop it. She had never been good at showing her vulnerability. Not to them. Not to anyone. But now, sitting in the stillness of the retreat, the tears came, unbidden and uncontrollable. Was this what it felt like to finally break? To finally admit that, no matter how much she had fought against it, she was still human? Still capable of feeling their loss, even if she had built her walls so high? Her phone buzzed in her pocket, and she wiped away the tears before checking it. It was a message from Reese. "What are you going to do, Vic? This isn't just about Christmas anymore, is it? This is about you." For the first time in years, the weight of everything crashed down on her. This wasn't just about them. It wasn't just about the Christmas dinner or their demands. It was about her own need for freedom, for space, for a life that didn't revolve around serving others. She had given so much, and it had been taken for granted. But now, for the first time, she had the chance to choose something different. She had the chance to choose herself. Her hand trembled as she tapped out a response to Reese. "I don't know what to do anymore. I'm scared." But before she could send the message, a sudden realization hit her. What was she really afraid of? Was it the loneliness of walking away from her family? Or was it the fear of facing her own strength? The fear that maybe, just maybe, she had been enough all along. She wasn't weak. She wasn't broken. She was just tired. What would you do if the family you've sacrificed for finally came to you with an apology, one that was too late? Can the wounds of years of neglect be healed with just one apology? Or does true healing come from letting go completely? Victoria stared at the cabin door, her fingers clenched around the phone. She took a deep breath and closed her eyes. Her answer was clear now. She didn't need to go back. Not for them. Not for anyone. She stood up, looking out at the serene lake one last time. The water was calm, unbroken. This is where I need to be. And with that, she turned away, knowing that the hardest part was still ahead, truly moving on, truly letting go. But she was ready now. Tomorrow, she would face them, not as the woman who was willing to give everything up, but as the woman who had already given enough. And she wasn't going back. Victoria stood at the edge of the lake, her fingers lightly brushing the surface of the water. The wind had picked up, sending ripples across the lake, but the sky was still calm, like everything around her had paused, giving her a moment to breathe, to feel. The weight of the world had left her shoulders the day she walked away from that house, the house that had once been her prison. The house where she had been nothing more than a servant, expected to give, to bend, to break for the sake of others. She had left that life behind, And now, standing in this place of peace, she felt the full magnitude of her choice. But something stirred in her, a faint stirring that was impossible to ignore. It had been a week since she left her family behind, a week since she had made the hardest decision of her life. And yet, there was still a part of her that ached, not from regret, not from guilt, but from the loss of something she couldn't put into words. Her phone buzzed again, pulling her from her thoughts. She pulled it from her pocket, expecting it to be another message from Reese, checking in, making sure she was okay. But it wasn't. It was from James. Victoria, I need to see you. The kids are asking about you. We're all lost without you. Please come home. I'm sorry. I see now what I didn't before. The words seemed to burn into her screen, a fresh wave of emotions threatening to overtake her. She stared at the message for a long time, the breeze rustling her hair, the quiet of the lake wrapping itself around her like a cloak, the apology, the admission of wrong. It was everything she had wanted, everything she had hoped for. And yet, there was something hollow about it. Did she even want to go back to that life? The life that had suffocated her for so long? The life that had pushed her to the brink of breaking? No, she realized. She didn't. Not anymore. But then why did it still hurt? Why did her heart ache when she thought of the kids, of the family she had once tried so hard to please? The question lingered in her mind, unanswered. It wasn't supposed to be like this. She wasn't supposed to be the one who had to choose. She stood there, contemplating her next move. She had left. She had made her choice. But could she truly walk away from everything? Was it selfish to not give them another chance? Was it cowardice to not confront them face to face? The fight she had fought to reclaim herself was far from over. She had won, but at what cost? Victoria took a deep breath, wiping her eyes as the emotions threatened to spill over. She thought of her family again, the ones she had tried to love, to give everything for. The endless holidays, the endless meals, the endless moments where her needs had been drowned in theirs. She thought of James, and she thought of her children, her heart breaking as the thought crossed her mind. Would they ever forgive me for leaving? She glanced at the message again. The words seemed to mock her now. She had wanted to hear them, yes, but now that she had, she realized they didn't fill the void. They didn't fix the years of neglect. They didn't heal the wounds she had carried in silence. They were just words, no different than the countless times she had been asked to push through the pain. A sharp laugh escaped her lips, one that was bitter and hollow. She had spent her entire life trying to please them, trying to be everything they wanted her to be, only to be left empty. The truth was, they didn't deserve her. Not the way she had been. They deserved the woman she was becoming, the one who was learning to put herself first. The one who was learning that her happiness didn't depend on their approval. Victoria's phone buzzed again. Another text. This time from Reese. You okay? You've been quiet for a while. She smiled, the warmth of Reese's friendship reaching her even through the cold distance. She could hear Reese's voice in her head, her words echoing in her mind, reminding her that it wasn't selfish to walk away. It was self-preservation. It was healing. Victoria typed back, her fingers steady as she wrote, I'm okay, Reese. Better than I've ever been. I think it's time for me to move on. For real this time. She hit send and then turned off her phone, letting it rest beside her. The decision had been made. She wasn't going back. As the days passed, Victoria settled into her new life. It wasn't perfect and it wasn't easy, but it was hers. She enrolled in a small art class by the lake, something she had always wanted to try, but had never made time for. She spent her days painting, her nights reading books she had never had the time to finish. She took long walks by the water, letting her thoughts wander with the breeze. But still, the ache remained, the loneliness, the void she had tried so hard to ignore. It wasn't that she missed them. It was that she missed the person she had been, the person who had believed in the possibility of family. It was a week later when the unexpected happened. The doorbell rang in the cabin, and Victoria froze. No one ever visited her here. She opened the door slowly, her heart pounding in her chest. Standing there was James, his face etched with exhaustion, his eyes searching hers with a look she hadn't seen in years. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, his voice breaking the silence. "I had to see you. I don't know what's next, but I know I can't let this go on. We need to talk." Victoria's breath caught in her throat. She had waited for this moment, but now that it was here, she realized she wasn't ready. Not yet. "What do you think? Can a person ever truly move on from the ones they love, or do they always carry a piece of them with them, no matter how far they go? How would you handle a family that has taken you for granted for so long, but now wants to make things right?" As she stood in the doorway, staring at James, her heart in her throat, she realized something she had never considered before. The real freedom wasn't in walking away. It was in choosing when to stay and when to let go. Her heart was torn, but in that moment, she finally knew what it meant to have a choice. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to heal her. But for now, she would let James speak. And she would listen, because this time, it was her turn to decide. What will Victoria do now? Will she open her heart to the possibility of reconciliation, or will she finally close the door on her past? Let us know your thoughts. What would you have done if you were in Victoria's shoes? If you enjoyed the story, comment 100 below. Also, let us know where you're watching from, and feel free to share this story with your friends. Thanks for watching Life Stories.